Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'm back at it with another video, and we are going to be talking all about this up and coming full moon in the sign of Aquarius. I'm calling this the period of cosmic liberation and radical change. It is a big one. There are so many aspects happening with this full moon. It is crazy. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, click the bell button below, give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Follow for more content. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And be sure to drop your rising sign and let me know what big things are on the horizon for this full moon with you, where it's hitting in your natal chart. My goodness. I'm excited to dive into the magic of this one because I have to tell you guys, I don't think I've seen a moon in a couple of months that's had this many kind of like, oh my gosh, aspects. So I'm really excited to kind of break down the aspects and also talk a little bit about the meaning behind this moon and give you guys some tips and predictions for the 12 rising signs. So stay tuned to the end for that. Now, this full moon in Aquarius is going to be peaking at August 9th, 2025. And that'll be at 16 degrees of Aquarius. So if you have anything 15, 16, 17 degrees of Aquarius, sun, moon, rising, or personal planet, pay special attention to that. And I think we're also going to be kind of noticing that the fixed signs are going to be feeling this one as well, the 15, 16, 17 degrees, and as well as I would say actually Gemini, early Gemini risings, because the ruler of this particular moon is going to be in your guys' sign. Now, this is a lunar event that's obviously very potent for all of you guys, but I feel like everybody's going to be feeling the change. It's got a pretty kind of significant like electric buzz to the aspects. So we're going to uncover that today. We're going to talk about what the symbolism is, the aspects, and also kind of how to work with this energy. Now, we know that a full moon happens every month, roughly every 28 days. We see the sun and the moon opposite each other. And this creates a moment of like illumination. So we could go back and we could look at the new moon in Aquarius and what was actually seeded 6 months ago to get a better idea of like where we started, I think, with this particular cycle. Now, when we had this new moon in Aquarius, this was around January 29th, 2025, and it was at 9 degrees. Mercury and Pluto were conjunct. They were very close to each other. So obviously, there was a lot of themes revolving around transformation of how we communicate, how we connect, anything revolving around networks, the internet, the mind. And also, it was like strongly connected to like information and disclosure. So now that we are at the kind of full moon theme, so we move forward and think about what intentions you guys were setting 6 months ago. Now this is kind of coming full circle. And what's interesting is that now we see Mercury in opposition to Pluto. So things that we were maybe obsessively fixating on, researching, learning, uncovering, now it is becoming so much bigger. And we'll get into all of the aspects, but obviously, with full moons, we see a major culmination, a conclusion, and there is some sense of really kind of feeling like the universe kind of puts a spotlight on something. So it's going to be revealing what's maybe been hidden. Now it's suddenly coming to light. And full moons are known for being a time where emotions are really high. We are being asked to kind of let go of things that no longer serve us, maybe celebrating what's coming to fruition, and also aligning with our deepest intentions. Celebration is a huge theme connected to Aquarius, by the way, and like the 11th house. So for a lot of people, it can feel like it's a significant turning point and some of our dreams are actually becoming a reality. But because this is a full moon that's got a few kind of like curveball aspects, I do think for some people, there can be blessings in disguise that can kind of be coming up at this time. And obviously moments of truth where we're actually seeing things more so clearly, sometimes too clearly. Now, when these breakthroughs happen, we will be making decisions. We will also be kind of called to let go of old patterns and make space for new growth. So that's pretty common for all full moons. But in particular, I feel like Aquarius moons do this very well because it's about kind of shaking free and focusing on independence and anything that's going to be about the future. So every full moon is going to kind of differ depending on the sign that it's in and the aspects that it's making. So its flavor really depends on the zodiac sign that it's in and obviously its aspects. So when we think about the Aquarius full moon, obviously it's ruled by, Uranus, which is known for being a little bit rebellious. It's all about breaking free from feeling like we need to conform, to other people's kind of beliefs and embracing our unique spark. And it's also about kind of aligning with collective change. So with some of the aspects that you guys are going to see, they can be rather like sweet or salty. It looks like it's going to be one extreme or the other. And one of the things I think that's beneficial is actually going to be the grand air trine that we're going to be seeing between Uranus, the ruler, Mars in Libra, and obviously Pluto in Aquarius. So pretty strong air trine. That does mean that it can be a little bit more social, a little bit more forward thinking. It can be a little bit more cerebral as well as kind of detached. And then obviously, it's going to also be making aspects to Pluto and Saturn. So Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius. So we see aspects pretty much going on with all of the outer planets. Like literally there is something that's either trining, sextiling, or opposing or conjunct all of the outer planets. So it's going to be a pretty loud full moon. I think that with these aspects, it's really kind of pushing us to make changes, obviously, expect surprises, and obviously, redefine our place in the world. So aspects are what's really going to kind of show us, okay, how this is actually going to be playing out. Now, this is where it kind of pays to know your own natal chart. I would say in particular, if you have anything around that 15, 16, 17 degrees of Aquarius, but also I think if you have anything around 0 to 3 degrees of the air signs, so Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra, this is going to be particularly interesting for you guys because you're really going to be tapping into that air trine. Now with Aquarius, we always look at what's going on with Uranus. And now Uranus is in Gemini. It's now at 1 degree. So it's going to be kind of like that Aries vibe when it comes to Uranus, which is very fast-paced, quick-moving, instant information, exchanges revolving around messaging and learning and radical kind of changes with air events. So that could be travel, that could be things connected to weather, that could be things connected to education, all of that stuff. So Uranus is making a ton of aspects in the sky, not just the trine that we're seeing to Pluto. Look at my marker here. Okay, but also this is the grand air trine I was talking about between Mars, Pluto, and Uranus. Sorry, that's a terrible, terrible triangle. There we go. But Uranus is sextile Saturn and Neptune in Aries retrograde. It is also sextile Mercury, which is the dispositor of Uranus. So it's making a lot of aspects in the sky. Fortunately, they're all friendly aspects. We're not seeing squares. We're not seeing any opposition. So that's really beneficial. But Uranus being the ruler of Aquarius, at least the modern day ruler, it's really going to be sparking innovative ideas in Gemini and sudden insights. Now, I think the sextile to Saturn and Neptune retrograde is bringing more of this kind of blend of discipline and inspiration, or better self-awareness, or kind of reflecting on who we are, what our boundaries are, what we believe in, what our goals are, all that kind of Saturn-Neptune stuff. And maybe we are being asked to kind of throughout the Saturn-Neptune retrograde, revisit our boundaries and commitments. And that's going to change the way that we connect and travel and communicate. Now, it's also going to support bold, practical steps forward with change, but only if we're willing to rethink, right, retrograde, old structures, Saturn retrograde in Aries. The trine that we're seeing to Mars and Pluto, I think, are incredibly powerful. These are kind of the heavy hitters in astrology. These are planets that deal with passion, energy, intensity, as well as change and transformation, right? They're traditionally associated with Scorpio and Aries. So when we think about the trine to Pluto, this is a very powerful air trine. And what this is doing is it's really kind of saying, while Pluto is retrograde, it's kind of amplifying transformation. Pluto is known for being deep. It's about purging energy. It's also very much connected to the collective evolution and where we're going as a group collectively, what is changing. And Uranus is going to spark breakthroughs. So those breakthroughs with Uranus and Gemini could be through media, transportation, information. Also apps are, I think, going to be a big thing that's kind of shifting around this time as well. And obviously sudden breakthroughs. And for many of us, it could be personal or societal shifts that feel intense, but also very liberating, right? So freeing the mind is very Uranus and Gemini. And through having more kind of free, open, discourse where we can actually have a lot more kind of clarity and awareness, the public can kind of wake up while Pluto is retrograde. Now, obviously, we see that there is a trine to Mars in Libra, which is a whole other video that I'm going to be kind of working on pretty soon for you guys, because there's some pretty wild stuff going on with the Mars-Saturn opposition. But, Mars and Libra trining Uranus and Gemini, also trining Pluto and Aquarius. This trine is going to be electrifying. So Mars generally does not fare very well in Libra. I would prefer to be in Aries or Scorpio. So as it goes through Libra, the positive is that it's diplomatic. It has the ability to kind of focus on relationships and pursuing partnerships and going after what it wants. sometimes like a dog with a bone, but there can also be this tendency of cutting, severing, or changing with relationships. So we're going to see that being a theme here as well. I do think that, Mars here really is going to also be about kind of like a call to act on our ideals with others, because it's not just trining Uranus, which is going to be about communication, travel, connection. It's trining Pluto and like where we all change and transform collectively through who we kind of partner with, who ends up supporting us or being our allies or being like our partners or our collaborators, right? Mars and Libra. Now, we're also going to see Uranus sextile Mercury, which is retrograde at the time in Leo. And a couple days later, around the 11th of August, we're actually going to see Mercury go direct at 4 degrees. So Mercury's actually kind of hit the degree where it's going to be stationing. And usually when we see Mercury getting ready to station, hey, we're getting ready to kind of get all of the details, all of the information. Something is getting ready to be fully understood or kind of like translated. So it is also very much tied into the Mercury retrograde, where there has been just a lot of like drama revolving around, what leaders have to say, what's going on in our romantic relationships, what's going on with our inner child, how we are playing and kind of creating. And there's been this like reorganization going on in the Leo department. Sextiles are friendly. So the sextile really is kind of saying, all right, Uranus sextile, Mercury retrograde in Leo, especially with it stationing, it can bring unexpected revelations in communications. I would say be cautious, because Uranus is impulsive. So there can be impulsive words, and it's about thinking before you speak. And any miscommunications around this full moon can definitely spark a little bit of drama. Now, while Mars is in Libra, it is in opposition to Saturn and Neptune, which I would say hands down in the list of like heavy, kind of transits in 2025, this would definitely be one of them. In particular, because, not only does Mars not fare well in Libra, where it can definitely cause some ruckus in relationships, and certain relationships that aren't making the cut can definitely kind of fracture, but also because Mars is the ruler or the dispositor of Saturn and Neptune. So we've got a debilitated Saturn in Aries, which doesn't exactly know how to lead, or it's not confident enough yet or experienced enough yet to know how to lead or how to kind of stand up or be responsible or be independent or mature. Now we've got Mars in Libra, which is kind of feeding off of that. So that opposition at a 1, Aries degree, Aries. Ones are always about, starting something, initiating something. And on one hand, Saturn Neptune can mean there are some people who are refraining from stirring the pot or having conflict or getting involved, or maybe even they're shying away from being kind of, divisive or wanting to kind of join one particular camp. Mars in Libra is going to be like people who are stirring the pot, and they are, kind of leading the charge and calling for, hey, like this is not fair. This is not diplomatic, or, this is not good for us as a team. And we're going to see some sparks going on with certain relationships, partnerships, and certainly probably some legal dramas that are kind of playing out in the world. So when we see this opposition, which, we see every so often, it's not unusual. It's just unusual in these signs. We definitely see some breakdown. So, Mars's opposition to Saturn and Neptune, it's going to create tension between taking action or, kind of like being a little bit more restrained. And it can also indicate that there are some people who are like, I don't know what to believe. I don't know whose side to be on. I don't know who to support. And we're definitely going to feel that there is some tension, or maybe feeling torn between pushing forward or kind of revisiting old lessons. Patience and clarity is really key here. It's not unusual that we see like conflicts, or we see people kind of breaking down, relationships breaking down when you see some of these aspects in these particular signs, especially because Aries is the individual and Libra is going to represent kind of like relationships and partnerships. You factor that in with a Mercury retrograde that is now in opposition to Pluto. So unlike the new moon in Aquarius, where it was a lot of the collective waking up, questioning things, putting things together, being like, is this real? Is this true? Is this factual? Like what is being kind of covered up in the world? And now we're seeing Mercury oppose Pluto, and we're seeing this with the South Node in Virgo. Mercury transits are incredibly important now because it's a lot of digging up the past. Well, Mercury's in the sign that deals with lovers, right? It deals with children. It deals with youth, creativity, romance, self-expression, hobbies, the stock market, that kind of stuff. So this could definitely be really kind of highlighting a lot of like where there's drama going on for people personally, and it's kind of like bubbling over into the collective. Now, as Mercury is retrograde, I think the things to kind of watch for is that the opposition to Pluto does stir up some drama. It can also bring up some intensity revolving around power struggles. Intense debate, especially in public or creative spheres, is very expected. Mercury retrograde is really urging us to kind of like reflect and think about things before reacting in a very dramatic way, because there can be misunderstandings. In particular, I would say Aquarius is our networks, the clubs that we're a part of, the social groups we're a part of, the online forums that we are a part of. And this is more about the people, the collective, and the audience, and how they are responding and reacting to creators of any kind. So this could be content creators, this could be celebrities, this could be other people who are kind of like in the spotlight. And so now the audience is going to have a chance to kind of react or reflect on how people have been performing. Now, the positive is that even though a lot of these aspects sound like, oh my gosh, quite challenging, we are seeing one of the better transits in terms of Jupiter and Venus that's going to be happening all year. And so that's why I'm like, wow, like all of the outer planets are very, very loud in this. And they're definitely talking about some kind of significant, powerful shift or change coming. With what? Aquarius could be about power. It could be things kind of connected to groups and panels and, Congress, Senate, groups of people who like make decisions. But the Jupiter-Venus transit, I think, is like extra, extra sweet. It won't perfect for a few days until after the full moon, but it's still going to be a part of it. And now we have Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. So it's exalted here. It's extra emotional, sentimental, focusing on growth of home, family, and domestic things. It's one of the benefics, and it's going to be meeting with Venus. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. It really, I think, is going to depend on A, your personal, chart and what you got going on, and also B, I think a lot of like the Saturn-Mars opposition is going to represent some people that are going to go, I have to step away from this thing, or, I have to break away from this relationship, or, this is no longer serving me. And now I'm realizing that we either need a break, we need some time apart, or we need to go our separate ways. And even though we lose something, I think the spirit is kind of like rejoiced, and that's with Jupiter conjunct Venus. This is a very lush conjunction. It's known for bringing abundance. It's known for love as well as emotional warmth. Some people will see this as good money transits, good relationship transits. It could be really beneficial for property and real estate. And obviously a beautiful moment for nurturing relationships and indulging in creative pleasure. And then finally, we do see that moon at 16 degrees is going to inconjunct or quincunx Jupiter. So that's also, I think, going to kind of enhance and make things feel a little bit more emotional. There's an awkward aspect when you're looking at an inconjunct. It is about some subtle kind of detachment. And a lot of that is Aquarius, is a little bit more about the collective. It's going to be a little bit more, kind of connected to the future. It's more cerebral. And obviously Cancer is much more emotional, and it's sensitive and it's reflective. So when we have lunar transits now, at least into next summer with Jupiter in Cancer, lunar transits, new moons, full moons, we're going to feel them, I think, all that much more strongly. And it inconjuncts Jupiter, not so much Venus as much. It's closer to the inconjunct with Jupiter. And some of us might feel like that inconjunct is about like really struggling to find the balance between our private life, our home desires versus, what's going on with collective goals. And really to navigate an inconjunct, we have to be flexible. This is going to be a full moon that's at 16 degrees. So 16 always connects and correlates also with Cancer. So when we think about that, it's obviously going to be showing us some of these themes that are connected to, Aquarius, sudden awakening, sudden rebellious, energies that are coming up, maybe being a little bit more kind of individually kind of connected. But then on top of that, it's also going to be saying, well, we're breaking from the past, or we're separating from past karma. Maybe we're separating from old ways of living and how we have been as a nation, or even as a family, because of that kind of Cancer degree. We can also find that this is, I think, a turning point where it can help us break free from where we felt stagnant emotionally, or maybe we've been having difficulties making shifts or kind of getting out of certain ways of living or certain family dynamics. It can kind of shake that free as well. Now, it is at 16 degrees and 59 minutes. So the Sabian symbol that we're going to be reading is for 17 degrees of Aquarius. And the Sabian symbol always just gives us a little bit more context so we know what's kind of going on behind the scenes. So for 17 degrees of Aquarius, we get a watchdog standing guard. So the theme is guardian and defender. The symbol speaks to guardianship and personal protections guaranteed each individual by law and social sanction. The image of a watchdog standing guard symbolizes loyalty, fairness, faithfulness, and readiness to defend and safeguard whatever is most highly valued. In a large sense, it really stands for the liberty and justice for all philosophy that encourages each individual to be his brother's keeper and protect the weak or disenfranchised from being taken advantage of by strong and privileged. The implication in this degree is the survival of any community is dependent on the strength of its individual members. On a practical level, the symbol can stand for regulatory or social service agencies, human rights groups, and all entities that oversee the welfare to protect human rights of each member of society. At its highest, the symbol represents integrity, vigilance, high principles, and courage. Watch for hostility and pervasive distrust of others. The accent is on vigilance, and you may sense that things are not quite right today and that you need to be particularly on guard about something. Your greatest advantage lies in knowing your rights and being sensitive to when they're in jeopardy. Be prepared to defend what you value. Guard against being overly suspicious in your relationships with others. On the other hand, don't borrow trouble by inviting the fox into the henhouse. Stepping stones is guardianship, protection, defense, preservation, safeguarding, watchfulness, attentiveness, fruitfulness, loyalty, allegiance, and dedication. Liberty and justice for all. Interesting. I think, when I look at this, especially like Mars in Libra can definitely be legal action, accountability, perhaps even with the trines to Pluto, personal, people kind of getting involved with whether or not they feel like other people need to be held accountable for things. The collective reaction and response to that could be the full moon in Aquarius. And I'm interested to see how this kind of manifests, because I think that the symbol really is going to be about heightened awareness, like paying attention to what's kind of going on, being on guard. And it does suggest needing to guard your individuality and values against external pressures of needing to conform. So I think for a lot of people, the Aquarius full moon is about standing firm in your truth, especially if you face societal or collective challenges. And it can hint that there may be sudden awakenings, like the watchdog's bark, obviously. And you might be kind of experiencing a jolt of clarity about what needs to change in your life or community. And the symbol can really kind of encourage you to trust your guts and your instincts to protect your vision, even if it feels a little disruptive. But Aquarius moons don't mind that. Anyways, the kind of predictions that I have for you guys, quite a bit of them actually, and usually you see the effects happen a couple of days prior. It can be several weeks after the full moon, really until we get to the next full moon, that this can still be kind of kicking in. So collectively, I think when I look at Uranus and I look at Pluto, because those are two very big players in this, obviously Pluto is in Aquarius. It's not, by any means conjunct the full moon, but it's aspecting the ruler. That air trine really signals there's about to be a huge global push for progress and innovation. So I am expecting major kind of societal shifts. So I'm thinking like breakthroughs in technology, social movements, gaining traction, unexpected changes in leadership is possible as well, especially in the midst of the Mercury retrograde. Uranus-Pluto trine can spark collective awakenings, and this can be things like new policies or cultural trends that are really challenging outdated systems. However, the Saturn-Mars kind of opposition is showing that there could definitely be resistance from established structures, and so the change may feel a little turbulent, right? But Aquarius full moon is kind of used to that. On an individual level, I think for a lot of people, this is really showing us our unique role in the world. And some of us might feel like this sudden urge to break free from certain routines, be more authentic, join a course maybe that aligns with our values, joining a new network even, starting a club. And I think the sextile to Saturn is really encouraging discipline action on a personal level when it comes to going after our goals, as long as we are revisiting and reworking old patterns first. I do expect epiphanies about identities, relationships, or creative projects, especially for the fixed signs. And obviously, Gemini rising, this is going to be impacting you as well because the ruler is going to be in your sign, especially if you're like 0 to about 3 degrees, you're going to be feeling this full moon pretty strongly. Now, in terms of global events, looking at some of these aspects, I would say for sure, Mars in opposition to Saturn, we're going to hear about stuff breaking down. We're going to hear about people noticing that there is like a inability to kind of cooperate or collaborate. There could be breaks in specific, relationships. There could also be people who are kind of splitting from, support of someone or something. We could also find that this is going to be really highlighting maybe advancements in communication, especially with Uranus and Gemini. So like information on technological developments, AI, cutting edge tech, new social media platforms, quantum computing, I think is going to be a huge theme, like leaps with that stuff with Pluto trine Uranus, and also learning more about decentralized digital systems. That air trine in particular is really going to be fueling kind of collaborative innovations. So, new tech hubs, research collectives might be kind of coming in as well. And it's very social with Pluto, Uranus, and Mars all in the air signs. So I think that this is really going to be really intensifying the push for people to be connecting in different ways. Maybe it's going to be spotlighting certain movements or global kind of projects who are advocating for equality, freedom, and environmental things. And then Mars in Libra, it is diplomatic, but it's being heavily challenged by Saturn and Neptune. So makes it a little bit more difficult when it comes to forming alliances. Which I think is not going to be as easy at the time of the full moon, which, look, Aquarius moon's going to rock the boat, and having a Mercury retrograde in Leo and a sun in Leo, we are seeing some people that are kind of dealing with some very dramatic situations right now in relationships. So for a lot of us that are going through like relationship changes, it can materialize as a time where we're realizing who our true friends are and who is there to kind of have our back or, kind of talk us off the ledge if we need some advice or if we're feeling kind of stuck. Now, I do think that Uranus aspect for this is going to bring some really big surprises. In particular, I think it's going to be unconventional political campaigns or, uprisings that are kind of happening against restrictive policies. Now, Pluto being involved obviously wants to dismantle old power structures, and this is really trying to pave the way for, progressive policies. The air trine is also about global dialogue. So I could see this being like connected to international summits or even like viral media campaigns or anything revolving around raising public awareness can also happen during the full moon. Now, I do predict there can be some disruptions in communication and information. I think that's pretty given with a Mercury retrograde anyway, but being that Uranus is going to be trining Pluto and Mars, I feel like even more so. With Mercury retrograde sextile Uranus, even more so. So there's potential for like disruptions in global communication networks. So there could be issues with cyber warfare. We could see misinformation scandals coming up. Unexpected kind of like media exposés is also very much expected, especially thinking back to this new moon when it was kind of seated, where there was a Mercury-Pluto conjunction. Maybe there was a lot of things that were kind of being circulated that were called conspiracy, or they were kind of fringe, or, it's like, oh, that's crazy. You've gone too deep down the rabbit hole, Mercury, Pluto. But now that Mercury is retrograde making an opposition, it's like individuals waking up and realizing like, wow, what I've been kind of following along or believing for some time may not actually be true. I could be manipulative, or there could have been disinformation or things that were meant to kind of maybe like separate or create like a lot of like friction or even what's the word that I'm looking for? Like polarity. Like polarity is like a huge theme when you see oppositions. And now people are kind of realizing, wait a second, the truth can be found somewhere in between, or that maybe it's not as crazy as my tinfoil hat wearing friend, really is. Maybe there's some kind of truth to it. So that retrograde can actually indicate that there's like a sense of awareness. I do think that the key here is about, resolving issues, and also transparency and communication is going to be like a huge focus here. So it could be like decentralized messaging apps, transactional, financial-based apps, decentralized, like financial things. So think like blockchain or anything kind of connected to cryptocurrencies. That could be a huge focus here as well. But I think the air trine's emphasis is really about kind of connectivity, and we're going to see like a surge in intellectual discourse. So you're going to see like a lot of people who are going to be doing like their TED Talk, kind of style chats or manifestos, maybe even artistic movements that are really kind of challenging the norms. And a lot of this is because Aquarius has like this visionary energy. So it can inspire groups of people to celebrate, their individual kind of beliefs and ways of self-expression. Now we do see tension, and it's very much baked into this, that is going to be between, progress and resistance, right? Progress is very much the Uranus, Mars, Pluto trine, hey, if we work together, we can uncover some of the, issues, or we can work through some of the crisis, and it helps us kind of also keep an open mind and better communicate. And so you're going to see all the systems, the networks, the apps and stuff for that, the message boards, the meetings that are going to start popping up. Obviously, Uranus and Gemini is also about making changes and getting more active locally. So rather than being kind of overwhelmed with all like the crisis that's kind of going on a global level, it's really kind of trying to kind of ground us down and say, hey, what can you change in your local community, or how can you be getting more involved in, town hall meetings or local politics or things going on a city or a state level, rather than getting overwhelmed with some of the things that are kind of going on a countrywide kind of aspect. So you're going to see a lot more people who are going to be more focused in their involvement in their local communities, which I think is actually really good. And this is happening because we're seeing people waking up, Saturn and Neptune in Aries, going, okay, I didn't break this world. I'm not responsible for everything going wrong, but I can certainly help, do my part to kind of put something back together. And if enough people start thinking like that, we're going to see some pretty significant changes in our local communities. And we're also going to see opportunities for people to start kind of really sharing and highlighting their leadership style. So we're all going to start kind of being better about, taking accountability and involvement for making the world a better place. I think the other side of this is that we can see this can manifest as like, clashes between innovative policies and traditional institutions, like debates over, certain regulations, or even things revolving around energy or transportation. Certainly that can be a huge theme. And with Saturn being retrograde and it's the co-ruler, it is a little bit more introspective. So it's about revisiting things that have not been working, what is breaking down, and what needs to be like reworked or renegotiated. So, kind of putting it all together, I really feel like for a lot of us, this is going to materialize as sudden innovations and collective kind of activism. And yeah, we might see some, kind of moments where there can be some stuff challenging the status quo, but as long as we're keeping those lines of communication open and we're really kind of focusing on, communicating more freely and kind of considering other ways of kind of moving forward, it'll urge the world towards a much more kind of connected and I think equal, footing. And also it's going to give us the opportunity to be a little bit more future minded, at least collectively. Now, it's going to be different for everybody personally. So you're going to want to look at what's going on with the Aquarius area of your chart. And I'll talk to you guys about the predictions for that. But something to really think about is that this is a full moon that some people are going to see break down with Mars in opposition to Saturn. But other people are going to see that severance, that breakdown, that separation, the moving away from certain affiliations or certain, relationships where maybe you once felt supported, but you no longer align. Other people are going to rejoice. And I don't want you guys to get too kind of caught up in the Pluto aspects, the Saturn-Mars, opposition. I really want to focus on the Venus-Jupiter, because the fact that the moon is there, and if we think about where the moon is in aspect to Venus and Jupiter, it is 8 signs away. So it means that there is going to be some kind of critical turning point, or there's going to be something that's going to expose, and it's going to feel crazy, and it's going to make us a little emotional. But it could actually be something that could be very beneficial for us in the long term. And it could actually make us happier, better balanced emotionally, have healthier homes and kind of lifestyles, also feel more comfortable and safe. Certainly, Venus going through Cancer is definitely going to be about home and security. And I think for a lot of people, it's going to be about whether or not we feel comfortable where we're living, more so in a country sense, not so much in like an actual, physical space, and what's needing to actually kind of come out or be disclosed to make all of us feel a little bit safer. So a lot of it's going to be about transparency. I would say, because this is a full moon that's in an air sign, you're going to want to work with air. So whether that's incense, writing intentions, working with chimes, working with musical instruments, All of that stuff that's more cerebral is what's going to be beneficial to kind of do ritually speaking during a full moon. And this isn't anything goes. So be mindful of what you guys are manifesting, because you could be asking for something, and I could almost see this as like a full moon where you get the Tower card, right? And when people get the Tower card, they don't realize that sometimes the tower has to kind of fall because we have to bulldoze everything and kind of clear the path to bring in what it is that is actually meant for us. What is the right relationship, the right job, the right scenario? But some of us, we're going to look at it and go, why is this falling apart, with Saturn in opposition to Neptune? When in reality, there's something really positive that we're going to be receiving. It's just kind of getting through some of the chaos of the full moon. Anyway, air sign, full moon, obviously meditation and visualization rituals are really great because Aquarius loves the big picture kind of thinking. So you could be meditating on the future, how, it looks, what does it feel like? What are you contributing to, the world? And maybe visualize breaking free from limitations and kind of stepping into that particular manifestation, I think would be a good one. Community connection is great with Aquarius too, because Aquarius rules groups and networks. So, a gathering with like-minded friends, discussing shared goals, volunteering, going to a networking event or opportunity, starting a group or a club, right? These are great ways to kind of celebrate full moon in Aquarius. Usually a pretty good time for parties as well. But I look at this and I go, well, there's going to be a lot of people going, you know what, I'm actually, kind of stepping away from a relationship, or I'm taking a break, or, there's some tension, or, maybe there's some challenges going on with business partners. And the way to lean into that is the trine to Uranus, which is get moving, go on a short distance trip, go on a weekend getaway, or maybe pick up a new book, or start listening to a new podcast on, putting yourself first and making changes and surrounding yourself with people that, you would like to be more like. Because it's really taking the energy actually away from relationships. It's putting it more on platonic relationships, not necessarily romantic. So certain signs, maybe if, you happen to be like a Leo rising or Libra rising, it might be more kind of relationship based for you guys, but it's much more platonic, especially with that air trine for a lot of the other signs. If you like to work with essential oils, I really like peppermint for clarity. I think that could be really good for this because clarity is going to be kind of challenging, I think, with the Saturn opposition to Mars. People are going to get kind of heated and they're going to be kind of hostile, and we may not exactly know which direction we're going in with Mars in opposition to Neptune. So staying grounded is really important also when you're dealing with like heavy hitters like Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto, because we can be feeling there's a lot of intensity in the skies. So I like peppermint. I like frankincense for spiritual connection. I like lavender also for that Mercury retrograde that's going on. So whether these are things that you use as like diffusers, or if you use essential oils, kind of in your daily routine, those might be helpful. And then if you like to use crystals, or you're like a rock hound, I would say I would use amethyst with this one to kind of enhance clarity. And that's going to be good for intuition as well. Aquamarine is really great for promoting, I think, communication, especially in the midst of this Mercury retrograde. Labradorite would be good also because it's going to spark transformation and creativity. Aquarius stones are going to be more focused on, visions and reflecting, kind of like fast forward, thinking. It's less kind of grounded maybe than the last Capricorn full moon that we had. As for herbs, look, it's an air sign, so you can work with incense. You can also burn something. And I would say this is a good one to clear stuff out, believe it or not. And a lot of that's the Mars-Saturn opposition, and also just the aspects to Pluto. Mental clarity is going to be big. So, sage can be good for that. It can also be good for just cleansing in general, bringing in wisdom. I like rosemary for mental focus for this one. And I think we could use a little bit of chamomile too to kind of work with some of the positive kind of connections to Mars. So this is really good for maybe inspiring us to kind of stand up, but also not getting too heated, not getting too inflamed. So maybe consider burning some sage, or maybe some rosemary tea or something like that could be helpful during this particular full moon. Another option is just creating a vision board. I like that with Aquarius full moons. I like that with Pisces full moons too, because it's about manifesting your dreams, and it's also about kind of moving forward. So if you guys decide that you want to do like a ritual, you want to kind of clear things out, and you want to focus on where you're moving forward, you can definitely do that, because this is a full moon that's about being like, okay, I don't want to be held back any longer. Now is the time to actually really create change, kind of breaking away from whether it's the people, the things, the spaces, that's inhibiting you from actually being able to be your authentic self and really have that kind of dream or wish fulfillment, right? All right, guys. Well, let me take you through the 12 rising signs. I would love to show you where this full moon is taking place for each and every one of you. So let's do that by looking at this from the perspective of the whole rising signs. And obviously, you know, I show this to you guys with whole rising signs, but if you're a Placidus user, you're going to want to see where 16 degrees of Aquarius is in your chart, which house does it fall in. You might have to listen to one of the other zodiac rising prediction signs, but no worries, it's fine. You'll get a little bit out of each one, whether you listen to your Placidus or your whole sign. I really recommend listening to your rising sign, then you listen to your sun sign. That's going to tell you a little bit more about your career or your overall kind of joy and vitality. Listen to your moon sign, because that's going to give you insight as to how it's kind of impacting you emotionally. And especially with a new or a full moon, you want to listen to your sun and your moon sign, because it's definitely going to apply some way, shape, or form. Special attention to 14, 15, 16 degrees of Aquarius placements, 17 even too. And those same degrees, I would say maybe 14 through 17 degrees of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio, you guys will be feeling this, and 0 to 3 degrees of obviously Gemini, because Uranus is the ruler of this particular lunation. All right, so we're going to start first with Aries and Aries rising. Give you guys your predictions for the full moon in Aquarius. And obviously for you guys, you're going to be seeing this full moon taking place in your natal 11th house, okay? So what does that mean? Well, you've got a full moon that's going to be happening in the house that deals with socializing, parties, get-togethers, gatherings. So that's going to be a fun house to have that. It's also about friends. It's also about your future goals. So for you guys, I see this as like a turning point where there can definitely be a lot to be looking forward to, a lot to celebrate, a lot of exciting things that's kind of happening with your community. So community and friendships are a huge focus. I'm predicting that, Uranus brings you like-minded connections, or maybe it's going to be bringing you a shift in your group dynamics. Obviously, there's a lot of aspects that are kind of going on here that's like working in your favor. This is a sign that sextiles you, especially if you're like a mid-degree Aries sun, moon, or rising. And the ruler of this full moon is in your third house, right? Uranus and Gemini. So what this can be saying is that, suddenly you're being given an opportunity to connect to people in a new way. And that could mean a local group, that could mean an online group, that could mean also you're given the space to be able to kind of like communicate more freely or kind of speak your mind. And I would say this is a good time for a lot of you guys to be really kind of open-minded when it comes to joining a cause or collaborating with other people. Maybe this is about you reassessing which groups you align with the most. That's kind of the vibe that I get. And I also think that if there has been a goal that you have been trying to kind of fulfill, especially if it's like learning something, anything revolving around travel, anything revolving around blogging or online related things, that can actually come to fruition. What's I think a little bit challenging for my Aries and Aries risings is that your chart ruler, it's in opposition to Saturn and Neptune. So it's almost like you're kind of taking a step back, being like, well, do I want to work with or partner with certain people? Do I want to put myself out there? And I would say, yes, other people are definitely a part of the focus here for you in terms of fulfilling some of your goals. And it doesn't mean it has to be a romantic relationship. It could be a creative collaboration. It could be a client. It could also be something involving your marketplace, things that you sell. So I would say stay open to that. And hopefully this is going to be like a grand party or like a gathering or a get together, because I think that's usually kind of what happens when you see full moons in the 11th house. All right, Aries, let's see what the cards say for you. Oh, of course, you get 4 of Wands. So I love that for you guys. This is like a wedding, a celebration, a ceremony, some kind of temporary space, a get-together or a gathering. So I could see this like with Uranus in your third house. You're traveling somewhere. You're going somewhere that's exciting where you can go and connect and collaborate with other people. It could be a fair. It could also be something connected to like performances or a party or a celebration of some kind. But I'm wondering if you get an invitation or if you're having to hit the road and go somewhere. Or if you're diffusing some of the stuff that's kind of going on with relationships by going like, okay, it's going to be much more of like a focus on hanging out with my friends, taking a little bit of space and taking some time to just experience a change of scenery and focus on having a good time. So I hope you guys enjoy that. You'll have to let me know what manifests for you. All right, we've got Taurus and Taurus rising. You guys are going to be doing the full moon in Aquarius in your natal 10th house. Obviously in the sign that squares you. All right, so if you happen to be the mid degrees of Taurus, you're feeling the effects of this full moon. Full moon in the 10th house. This is going to be a period of time where you're focusing more on your career. This is also about your public image. This is also about your legacy. So full moons in the 10th is generally a time where you see a career breakthrough or an unexpected turning point where there's like recognition that could emerge for you. Uranus is, pushing for innovation, and Uranus is currently moving through your second house of money, self-esteem, and values. So it is really kind of highlighting that part of the change that's going to be happening for you professionally, out in the world is very much connected to you being a little bit of a maverick when it comes to making money and ways that you can actually show your talents and like bring in some resources. So while we're kind of looking at some of those aspects, I also think about the fact that you're going to be seeing, Saturn, which is really demanding you to kind of refine your long-term goals. And Saturn obviously is kind of in the 12th house. So it's kind of saying, all right, well, it's a lot about what you're thinking about behind the scenes or what you're reworking or what you're taking a step back away from. It goes without being said, at least as a Taurus rising, at the time of the full moon, your ruler is coming into conjunction with Jupiter. So it can mean, all right, part of what you're kind of putting out there is something you're writing, something involving an app, something connected to media, something kind of connected to short distance travel, maybe updating a website, any kind of announcements that you want to make. It could be very big. And it's not unusual to have changes in your work or your career when you have a full moon in this particular house. Definitely keeps things interesting, and it looks like you're just changing or diversifying your relationship to your career. All right, so let's see what we can tell my Taurus and Taurus risings. Maybe pitch a bold idea, update your brand, and kind of reflect on what you're changing financially at work too. The card that I got for you is the Knight of Coins, which is good for you, Taurus. This is a card that definitely can represent you. It's connected to all the earth signs, so Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, but it can mean that you're approaching things where you're like, okay, it's been one foot in front of the other, slow, steady, consistent. You've been building for the last 6 months. Now it's kind of coming to this turning point where you're really feeling like, is it time to make some grand announcement? Is it time to release something? And also it can be about good news that's coming for you financially. Thankfully, this is a night that is a little bit more, I wouldn't say consistent, but they're going to be a little bit more practical when it comes to making changes. So I think that you'll navigate whatever is changing at work pretty well, even though some of the Uranus energy can kind of throw you off a little bit. And it can feel like suddenly there's a need to kind of switch gears and pivot, but it looks like that you're going to make the right decisions and that there is going to be some positive financial kind of things that can come from some of the professional stuff on the horizon. Good luck. All right, we've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You guys are going to do the full moon in Aquarius in your natal 9th house, obviously in a fellow sister air sign. So this is really actually, I think, a great full moon for the air signs. But if you're early degree Gemini rising, you're going to be feeling more the wild ride of Uranus. That's going to be kind of around your 0 to about 3 degrees placements. Versus if you happen to be mid degrees of Gemini, 14, 15, 16, this is going to trine you. So any which way, it's definitely exciting and kind of powerful. Now, the full moon is going to be in your 9th house. And so the 9th house is about kind of expanding your beliefs. It can be about going on a trip. It can be about finishing up a legal matter. Maybe you're teaching something. Maybe you're traveling. And Uranus in your sign is really going to be about sparking a desire for new travel. You might feel like a little wanderlust. Maybe you're embracing, new philosophies. And I think with Saturn retrograde in your 11th, this is also going to be about kind of reflecting on your goals and your connections to groups, as well as like figuring out your purpose, right? That's how I see it. So it's possible that your worldview shifts. It's also possible that you're traveling or that you're taking a course. So there's something that's kind of shifting, revolving around teachers or mentors. And I would say that with Uranus on your ascendant, it's time to keep an open mind and be more open maybe to continuing education, spontaneous travel, speaking your mind, going and participating in taking courses or learning things that really interest you. Obviously, this is not in your sign, but Uranus being there makes you one of like the big time players. And with the Mercury retrograde that's going on, there's already a sense of you shifting how you communicate what you think or what you believe in. So maybe there's a lot more communication revolving around travel and like where you're going to be going and what the plan is, especially if you're organizing something. So double and triple check everything revolving around, transportation due to that retrograde in your third house with the full moon. And I think that this could be a time that's like really eye-opening for you guys, because you're going to be really tapping into a brand new belief system. All right, so let's see what the cards say for my Gemini and Gemini rising. I love that. You get the Ace of Swords. Yes. So this is powerful because of the air trine, right? If I think of like Ace of Swords, I would think of like Mars in in an air sign, which we do see. So everybody benefits from the air trine, but I think the air signs are really going to dig it because it's going to be making aspects to them personally. Well, Mars in the 5th house is basically saying taking chances, being creative, expressing yourself, sharing with others. So it's a lot of what you're creating, what you're writing, what you're having to say with the Ace of Swords, right? When it comes to pitching ideas, connecting, collaborating with other people. Ace of Swords represents a new beginning. So it can also be kind of saying this is the beginning process of you thinking, okay, you know what, I've been studying something for so long, now I'm realizing that I really want to perfect it and I want to take a serious program, or I want to travel somewhere to do some training or something like that. It can also mean that you're getting involved in writing or publishing, which could also be pretty common with the Ace of Swords. But this is about being bold, being creative, speaking your mind, and really letting your ideas shine. So that could be a theme that you could see clear into the fall, because that is a card that is associated with the fall of this year. So let me know what happens, my Gemini, Gemini risings. I'm excited to see how that manifests for you guys. All right, we've got Cancer and Cancer rising. What's up, Cancer? You're doing the full moon in Aquarius in your natal 8th house. And obviously the 8th house is showing the axis between the 2nd and the 8th. So with this full moon, it's pretty financial for you guys. It can be dealing with joint finances, taxes, inheritance, also intimacy, things revolving around transformation. That's kind of the theme of the 8th house. So you're very sensitive to lunar transits. So with the full moon being here, something that you want to be mindful of is that Uranus is running the show, and now Uranus is in your 12th house. So while the full moon might bring up unexpected financial matters, paying off a debt, somebody having to return some funds to you, or going back and forth with another person about your budget, you're navigating these things intuitively because Uranus is the ruler and it's in the 12th house. So your dreams, your intuition, maybe even like learning or studying metaphysics or astrology is very like Uranus and Gemini in the 12th. And that's helping you navigate a pivotal moment when it comes to change. Now, it's also possible that there are unexpected shifts in relationships or finances, but I think with Saturn in aspect, it can definitely help you set boundaries when it comes to your connections, more so in a professional manner, and what you're reflecting or reassessing at work and how that's kind of impacting the money that you're bringing in, or some kind of joint finances that you have with somebody else. I think the positive is that, Mercury's been retrograde in this part of the sky in your 2nd house in opposition, which means you're reassessing your finances. Maybe you're budgeting differently. Maybe now it's giving you the opportunity to pay a bill that's been, kind of past due, or it's giving you the opportunity to invest or save money. And when we see the full moon coming in, Jupiter and Venus are aligning in your sign. So it is kind of saying that it's really highlighting either a work or health matter, which is going to be about healing yourself, bettering yourself, feeling better, feeling also that you're taking care of yourself in an emotional way, not just a physical way. So for my Cancer and Cancer risings, I would say also a lot of this can be connected to like health and wellness, and whether or not you're feeling like you're doing well in that department. And maybe you could be going back and forth regarding tapping into benefits, tapping into making changes with insurance companies, or anything revolving around getting something covered, literally financially, to better your health. Obviously, whatever is going on, I think Venus and Jupiter in your sign are going to protect you, but there's definitely a sense of having some big kind of turning points in finances that I think are going to come up during this particular time. So with that being said, I think I would have an honest talk either with your partner about finances if this comes up. I think it could also mean that you're kind of using your intuition when it comes to exploring joint ventures, and maybe releasing fears revolving around vulnerability. All right, so let's take a look here. Well, let's see for Cancer and Cancer risings, what do the cards say for this? So you get the Knight of Wands. So that could be an Aries, a Leo, or a Sag. But this could also be you that's like, okay, I'm taking action. I'm leaping into something. I'm taking a risk. Certainly, it could mean that you're taking a risk in a lot of different ways. I think that more of the risk is going to be kind of connected to obviously your fifth house, and that's ruled by Mars. So Mars in opposition to Saturn. What is the risk that you're thinking about taking? Moving, relocating, changing your home, rearranging your home. Maybe it's going to be risks revolving around home and family relationships. And I think that having Mars going into your fourth house, where there can be a lot more focus and emphasis at home or with family, in opposition to Saturn and Neptune, is going to have some Cancer and Cancer risings going, something's got to change. It's either got to be where I'm living, how I'm living, or my job. So take it easy, right? Because I know all of these things kind of impact one another. It's possible that you're just feeling like you're ready to jump into action and make bold decisions and make bold moves. So could that mean that you're willing to take a financial risk, or that this is going to be about embracing change? Is there somebody that comes into your life this month that really incentivizes you to say, hey, we have to keep moving forward. You can't stay in the past. It's okay to make a change. This is how we do it. Who might actually give you the nudge that you need to go in the right direction. Good luck. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys are doing the full moon in Aquarius in your opposite sign in the seventh house, where the moon opposes the sun in your first house. So pretty dynamic for you, Aquarius, having that full moon in your seventh house of partnerships and one-on-one relationships. Interesting. I mean, obviously, Uranus is electrifying this. So it's not just your one-on-one relationships like boyfriends, girlfriends, spouses, but it's also friends, right? Aquarius, seventh house. And this is ruled by Uranus that's going to be hanging out in your 11. So it can mean that your friends, your social networks, your allies are playing like a role in your relationship. Maybe there's a lot of talking about relationship goals and what you're hoping to kind of achieve. And it's electrifying anything regarding your love life or collaboration. And it can bring some exciting but unpredictable changes, obviously, to relationships. Certainly full moons in the seventh house can be a make or break time for some people. But I think with Saturn in aspect and it's retrograde, it does say that it's asking you to solidify commitments, focus on what your relationship lessons have been. Where are you guys going together, literally or figuratively? And this could be about also being open to unconventional partnerships, maybe revisiting past relationship patterns for clarity because Saturn's retrograde. And Mercury is retrograde at the time of this particular full moon in your first. So there's a lot of you reevaluating, who am I? What are my goals? What do I want? And now you're seeing if this lines up or kind of works well with other people. Obviously, you're the sun. So anytime you have planets that are opposing or kind of squaring you, you're going to see some stuff happening. Something that I would just kind of like watch for is the fact that the moon rules the 12th house of the subconscious, and it's about getting everything out in the open. Seventh house can be your counselor, your astrologer, your therapist, your marketplace, not just romantic partners. And the moon is obviously ruled and connected to Venus and Jupiter. So it could actually mean that you're coming into a period where you get to experience relationship healing, that there is some good karmic relationship stuff at play, giving you the opportunity to have a little bit of time together for rest and recuperation and kind of really focusing on nurturing each other better, especially in a private, more intimate way, right? Venus, Jupiter in the 12th. All right, let's see what the cards have to say for you guys for this full moon in your seventh. The card that I get is the Eight of Swords, which is an interesting card because this is about kind of feeling stuck or feeling lost or not knowing how to get clarity or not wanting to or being able to see the reality for what it is. So a lot of this can be connected to the fact that, there are some pretty heavy-hitting aspects going on in your seventh house, not just the full moon, but the fact that Pluto is retrograde there. So especially if you're like a early degree Leo or Leo rising, I would say like 0 to 5 degrees, Pluto kind of going in and out of your seventh house or retrograde along your descendant is like really showing you the heavier, more challenging, sometimes other side of relationships, so that you're in relationships with people who are really going through some pretty kind of pivotal turning points in their life. I do think that a lot of the retrograde has been you going, well, if somebody is in this state, can we make it work? Can I still be with them? Can I still have a good relationship with them? Can we still work together? And that's still kind of debatable, right? Mercury is still retrograde in your sign. So it means that you're really having to kind of invest in yourself right now and not be so worried or assuming that this is worst case scenario or the end of the road for a relationship. If anything, it can just be a time where partners are definitely a little bit more emotional, a little bit more moody. But if you lean into some of the trines that are happening with Uranus in your 11th house, it can be actually helping you kind of refocus your energy to, okay, my audience or my friendships or my networks, especially if there is some kind of tension going on in relationship. And then the trine to Mars in your third is really kind of amplifying travel, communication, short distance, work, journaling, walking, self-help and learning. So the relationship stuff can be navigated. It can be worked through, but it's going to be worked through ideally with you being able to travel or being able to kind of connect socially with other people, not overly focusing on what's going on with relationships. And I think you've been learning that. That Eight of Swords really says that you're not stuck in this situation right now. It's just hard to kind of see your way through it. Maybe you don't want to look at the situation, but the full moon is actually going to show you the reality of your relationship dynamics and what actually needs to change and how to get out of your own way. Good luck. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You guys are going to be doing the full moon in Aquarius in your natal 6th house. Obviously, the 6th house deals with health and habits, anything connected to your coworkers, your workspace, your pets, and your daily routine. So having a full moon in this particular house is going to be an interesting one because some of you guys might be changing your office space. Some of you guys might be getting health results. Others might be kind of really focusing on kind of letting go of old, outdated habits and things that aren't working. Certainly, Uranus is sparking a lot of change across the board with work. It's now in your 10th house of career and reputation, and it will be trining Pluto in your 6th house of work. So what you're going to find is that this is really opening the door to innovative approaches, I think, to work or wellness, while Saturn retrograde is going to be really kind of encouraging you to be working through some deep-seated emotional or financial matters. And it's possible that if there's been some health stuff going on, it becomes more visible to you now. But I actually feel like this is much more connected to work and productivity and really reflecting on habits that need tweaking. Maybe the full moon is going to show you where you actually need to make some changes in your schedule to kind of embrace a second job or a new creative venture or maybe something that's kind of different or unusual. Tap into Aquarius energy, where you can be using apps and technology and other things for productivity to help you navigate some of these changes that are going on with your professional life. Certainly Mercury retrograde at the time of this particular full moon, it's in your 12th house. So some of you guys might be going, actually, the change in my schedule is that I'm traveling and I'm going to be in another country and I'm stepping away from work and I'm trying to kind of figure out what direction to go in. And if you are away, you might be hearing from people at the office. If you are dealing with health or healing matters right now with the Mercury retrograde, this is going to be possibly a turning point where you're going to see stuff is going to significantly start to change. I will say for all the Earth rising signs, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, this air trine that's going to be happening is in houses that deal with work, money, and career. So there's definitely some really powerful energies setting up that's kind of incentivizing you to focus more on, okay, how can I make some changes to my schedule, bring in some more money, and embrace some of the changes that's going on in your professional world. Mercury retrograde right now is saying you have to kind of release some of the need to kind of control some of that stuff, clear some things out, make some space for you to be able to do that, even if that means taking time away. The card that I got for you is the World card, which could be a travel card for sure, so it wouldn't surprise me if some of you guys are traveling. But this is about completing cycles. So I love when this card comes up with a full moon because it means that you're like, okay, you've learned the lesson, we're going to move through it, and we're going to move on. Easier said than done, I think, when your chart ruler is in opposition to Pluto, where maybe you're just trying to finally kind of come to terms with the fact that's like, this is not the job for me. I am ready to move on. Okay, great. Or, hey, this habit does need to kind of come to an end because it can be impacting my sleep or it can be impacting my health, and we're completing it. So I don't think it's as easy as other charts might have it. And a lot of it is how you're kind of balancing your mind, body, spirit stuff. The World card is saying that you are completing cycles. So like completing a project, completing a health goal, completing a job, completing a move to a new office. These can be things that you can kind of be seeing that could be transpiring within about a month of this particular full moon in your 6th house. Good luck. All right, we got Libra and Libra rising. What's up, Libra? Okay, so Libra, you're going to see a full moon in Aquarius taking place in your natal 5th house, and obviously in a fellow sister air sign. So this is going to be good for you guys because it's definitely going to feel familiar and like you're kind of like, at home in a way. The 5th house full moon is a fun one. So this is one that's going to be more relationshipy. It's also about romance, creativity, self-expression. Fifth house is going to be about joy, creative projects, children, and love affairs. So you're going to see this is going to be kind of like the highlighted topic for you. I predict for some Libras and Libra risings that there could be like a sudden spark in your love life, or creative projects are really shifting your perspective. Maybe you're focusing more on hobbies and you're finding something that really brings you a lot of joy. Obviously, Uranus is the ruler, so it's going to be kind of igniting for you opportunities for bold, unconventional ideas, spontaneous travel. Maybe taking a class or traveling somewhere to go and do something fun. Learning about art, learning about children, or some form of performance-based things can kind of come up for you guys as well. And obviously, you're one of the air signs, so you're going to see Pluto in the fifth house of love, creativity, trining Uranus in the ninth house, which is going to be about travel and education, trining Mars in your sign. So Libra, the more that you're leaning into learning, traveling, and shifting your perspective and your beliefs, as well as getting serious about having fun or, being passionate or having passion projects or hobbies, the better you're going to navigate this particular full moon. Because even though it's friendly from the perspective of the full moon and the air trine, and it's extra sweet because you're going to have the Jupiter-Venus conjunction, it's not as friendly for you because you have Mars on your ascendant, which means a lot of you guys are going to be picking up the pace, needing a morning routine. You're going to be very self-focused. There's also going to be a lot of focus on your goals and your drive and what you're hoping to achieve and what you desire. And that's going to come into conflict with Saturn and Neptune in your seventh house of relationships. So that means that you're going to be a little bit more impatient. You're not going to be as willing or understanding when it comes to making sacrifices for others, because you're going to look at that Saturn Neptune in the seventh house and you're going to go, well, they're not necessarily all there, or they're not giving me what I want, so I'm going to go elsewhere. So I'm going to take a class, I'm going to travel, I'm going to have some fun, because some relational issues can come up. So definitely those of you guys who are not in committed relationships, there can be this sense of a turning point with a more kind of casual relationship. Some Libras and Libra risings are also going to find, because of Venus and Jupiter conjunct, so your rulers conjunct Jupiter around the time of the full moon, the 9th through, let's say, like the 12th through the 13th, huge turning points for your career, right? Your purpose. Venus in the 10th house with Jupiter is like you're going to have some success, or there's going to be some positive announcements. Well, it could be about a project, something you're launching, something you've created, something you're proud of. And some Libra and Libra risings with a full moon in the fifth house, and with the ruler being connected to your fifth house in a trine to Mars, means that some of you guys are traveling for passion, traveling for relationships, or there's a big storyline that's somehow kind of connected to children or pregnancy. So I'm going to be really interested to see how that manifests for Libra risings. Let's take a look. Let's see. But just focus on embracing your inner artist, having fun, taking a romantic risk, maybe revising, projects, and looking at some blocks maybe that you've had creatively, and like now finally being able to move forward. Interesting that I was like talking about that Saturn Mars opposition, and the Emperor card comes up. Okay, so Mars is associated with the Emperor. The Emperor is about kind of like sitting in the driver's seat and being like, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do it, and kind of like being a leader, right? And Libra is a masculine sign. Even though it's ruled by Venus, it's very kind of matter of fact and direct, and it wants to be linear in a way, kind of like Mars. But it's more known for being diplomatic. The truth is, Libra, is with Mars on your ascendant, you can't really be diplomatic. You're going to try. But I think that trying, it means that you might be making personal sacrifices, and you're doing it for other people when you need to be more self-focused. You need to be asking yourself, what actions am I doing to promote my own happiness? What do I need to be creating? And making sure that you're going after that, and holding yourself accountable for your own happiness, not putting it in the hands of other people. It's about what you create and what you love. And so is the fifth house full moon. So this can be about bosses. This can be about leaders. This can be about father figures as well. Maybe it's about kind of confronting certain people in your life that maybe you have felt like has kept you from feeling 100% and like reclaiming your power. Good luck. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You guys are going to be doing the full moon in Aquarius in your natal fourth house of home and family. If you happen to be mid-degrees Scorpio, I would say, that 14, 15, 16 degrees, 17 degrees, it'll be squaring you. So just kind of keep that in mind. We also do see the return of like the Mercury-Pluto opposition. So that does create a little bit of stress or tension in communicating changes between home as well as work and professional life. So that's still kind of in the air in the midst of a Mercury retrograde. For you guys, you're going to see the full moon happening in your fourth house, which is actually more connected to your home and your family, inner foundations, things that are kind of happening on the home front. So when you see a full moon here, it's not unusual for there to be big turning points in regards to home, like buying a house, moving, big changes with the family, big shifts in your private life or emotionally. And there can be like a family reevaluation that's kind of going on. There could be some changes recently in your home, and Uranus is the ruler. So it's interesting that even though you have like that Pluto-Mercury opposition, you have some really nice trines happening with both of your planetary rulers, and it's about putting this to good use. Pluto is known for, kind of digging everything up and bringing everything up and purging it so that way it can be healed. So you're kind of doing that when it comes to your emotions and your home and your family. Now, Uranus being the ruler of the full moon in the 8th house trining is saying you're kind of reevaluating what changes are happening emotionally or financially that impacts you, your family, and your home. Sudden changes with resources, things fluctuating, changes with your business partners or potentially with your spouse's income can be a theme. And then with Mars trining Pluto and also trining Uranus, oh my goodness, there is a lot of things happening here. Mars in the 12th house, I think, is about overcoming some of the issues with like relationship karma, and repressed emotions. And it will be opposing Saturn and Neptune. So a lot of you guys are going, okay, I'm reflecting on 6th house topics like my daily routine, my health, my habits, my pets, and the impact that they're actually having on my sleep, my relationships, my partners. And really, I think the key here is to lean into some of the positive things, Scorpio. Change is a natural part of life. I know you know that. It's happening at home, and that's creating big changes emotionally and financially. This can be positive if you're learning to release and let them go because it's happening in like water houses, right? The 4th, the 8th, and the 12th. The other thing that I think works in your favor is that you're also going to see your 7th house lord, Venus, conjunct Jupiter. So it's almost saying like there could be some travel on the horizon. There could be opportunities for you also to kind of like meet somebody new or kind of more so enhance an existing relationship, and things could be a little bit sweeter. So sometimes the full moon actually in the 4th house gets you out of the house, and you're like, okay, there's been too much things going on in the house. Like I got to break free. I got to find something fun to do. So with a full moon in aspect to obviously, ruling planet Uranus, really what it's saying is that it's time for you to rethink your family dynamics, rethink joint finances. Maybe you're redecorating your home. Maybe you're saying that it's not so much the home, it's more kind of wrapping up loose ends in the past and getting ready to move forward. And I'm especially excited to see how this kind of manifests for you guys, because it wasn't really until I looked at the Scorpio rising horoscope that I realized, wow, there's really a lot of stuff going on with your chart rulers. So you'll have to let me know, are you feeling more of like the Saturn Mars opposition, or are you feeling more of the Pluto Uranus Mars trine? All right, let's see. What is the change that's coming for Scorpio? Certainly Uranus in the 8th house getting highlighted. Some of you guys are like, what? My property taxes went up? What? I, suddenly have to, pay more for my renter's insurance. Or it could also be that there is some sudden windfall and financial breakthrough that can create some big changes on the home front too. You get the Devil card, which is going to point me in the direction of Saturn. So this is going to be talking more about Saturn and Neptune in your 6th. Scorpio, what's going on with work and your routine? Like, where is it that now that Saturn is retrograde, you have the ability to rework and refine something about your daily routine, your organization, your habits, your responsibility? You're probably realizing that there are some things that you could get better organized or you could be better about. And it would create a lot less friction or stress or even like lack of sleep or lack of time with partners if you get some of this stuff in order. And so I think this is a full moon that's really going to illuminate for you, hey, these are the emotions that are coming up, and like this is the change that I actually have to make. Obviously, the Devil card's not a fun card because it does kind of deal with feeling stuck or feeling burdened or something that you just can't quite break out of. And I think for a lot of you guys, you might feel like whether it's relationship habits, it can be also working habits, it could be health challenges, that these are things that are holding you back. But in my opinion, the Mars-Pluto trine is actually saying that this is all about releasing some of those things and realizing that it's about creating a better life balance and not feeling like you're needing to be stuck or limited because of other people, setting yourself free from that, and how some of that is actually going to start with some of the habits with home and family. Good luck. We've got Sag and Sag rising. You guys are going to be experiencing the full moon in Aquarius in your natal third house. For you guys, this is the house that deals with communication, learning, local connection, siblings, transportation, and short distance travel. So having a full moon here is actually pretty friendly, especially if you're a Sag rising or you have Sag placements, because it does kind of sextile you, so it's a little bit easier to navigate. And the full moon is really going to be kind of bringing up themes, kind of connecting to new ideas, surprising conversations, maybe, completing blogs, websites. It can be signing contracts, anything like that. And it's obviously ruled by Uranus, which is now in your 7th house of relationships. So there's definitely some things changing or shaking up, revolving around how you connect and communicate with others. Now, Uranus and Gemini could mean that there's sudden, shocking, surprising changes going on in relationships. You suddenly meet somebody or something kind of suddenly kind of fizzles out. Or there is a surprise breakup or kind of separation. For others, it could mean that you're focusing on, new ways of connecting and communicating. So working with a therapist, working with an astrologer can very much be Uranus in the 7th. It could also mean that your communication with your community, your siblings, even your neighbors might be a huge focus. And with Pluto trine Uranus there, that really interests me, because really what that's highlighting is like a transformation in the way that you're thinking and learning, and how it's like bringing breakthroughs actually in relationships. Now, the other thing I think about is that, this is also co-ruled by Saturn, and we are going to see that Pluto is kind of sextiling Saturn in your 5th house. So what this is going to bring up for a lot of you guys, I think, is this focus and this emphasis on how can I better express myself and talk about what's going to make me happy? How can I create something, or maybe write or produce something that is going to be creative and like very independent and very me? I think Saturn retrograde is helping you kind of structure some of that stuff, but it's a little slow. And this can be like a good full moon to, start a community project, maybe start a blog, a podcast of some kind. Just know that Mercury is retrograde, so you got to kind of double check your communication during this full moon. And Jupiter is your ruler. And with Jupiter being in Cancer in your 8th house, there's a lot of changes and transformations emotionally, with joint assets as well as with home and family, because it's in Cancer. So what's beneficial for you, Sag, is that Venus is actually approaching your chart ruler in the 8th house. And this means that you're about to have a pretty positive turn of events when it comes to finances and money. In particular, it could mean that, you're having a lot of love and support that is coming from family. Maybe they're feeling more generous. They want to help you. Property, real estate, inheritance, these things can definitely be popping up for you with Venus and Jupiter meeting in the 8th house. We're generous partners, and also a positive kind of increase in your partner's income for those of you guys who are committed. Because this is also connected to the moon, it might mean that there are documents, contracts, estates, things connecting to wills, insurance even, that can kind of be popping up. And that could be through siblings, that could also be through car insurance policies, things like that, or something that is being paid to you or reimbursed to you. So definitely watch for communication revolving around money. I think that's pretty much it for the most part. Just kind of keep in mind that, whenever you have a full moon in the 3rd kind of 9th house axis, there is a focus on learning and communication and self-expression. So be mindful of what you're thinking and what you're saying, what you're kind of giving power to. And hopefully words can kind of help unite you with other people in your life with Uranus in your 7th. All right, so let's see what the cards say for Sag and Sag rising. You get the Judgment card. For me, whenever the Judgment card comes up, it's like one of those final cards in the tarot. And the full moon is about a conclusion. So what major decision are you making? What are you committing to? What major announcement are you making? Judgment is saying now it's time to kind of commit to something that you've been thinking about for some time. Have you been thinking about having a conversation with a partner? Have you been thinking about finally launching a website? Have you been thinking about taking a course? Now is the time. And it's also saying that this can be about kind of karmic things taking place, because Judgment is kind of saying, okay, it's because of things you've said or you've worked on or things that you've written about or spoken about or committed to, at least in your sense of your mind in the past. Now it's finally coming full circle. So I'm hoping for a lot of Sag and Sag risings, you're going to be getting a lot of interaction and a lot of feedback. And I also feel like there's going to be signs that are going to be coming from the universe that's confirming that you're on the right path if you had to make a decision that felt like very definitive around the time of this full moon. Good luck. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are going to do the full moon in Aquarius in your natal second house of personal values, resources, self-esteem, and money. Obviously, this is very financial for you and my Cancer risings. So a full moon in the second house is going to be putting a focus on money-related things. This can give you an opportunity for a financial breakthrough or potentially even like a shift in your self-esteem. Now, this is a full moon that is ruled both by Uranus as well as Saturn, and Saturn is obviously your ruler, so we're going to see some surprising and kind of beneficial aspects. We're also going to see some challenging ones. So I'm going to start with the positive first. The fact that you have a full moon in your second house can bring big news revolving around money and changes with your finances, likely brought on by Uranus in your sixth, which could be sudden changes happening at work, taking on a new job, completing a job, or now working more independently. Particularly if you're in writing, media, anything connected to hospitality, anything connected to travel, or you're starting some kind of a side business, it can be more prominent for you. And what I do like is that you are going to see that Uranus is trining Pluto in your money house and Mars in Libra. So it can mean that there's something changing with your schedule. Suddenly you're kind of getting back out there. There's more focus on work in your career, and it's helping you totally change and transform your financial situation. I think what's a little bit more tricky or challenging is the fact that you are going to be seeing, Mars going through your career zone, really lighting that up, focusing on now kind of getting out of the house, being a little bit more public, being active with groups. It's coming into opposition with Saturn in Aries in your fourth house, and Saturn is your ruler. So especially for early degree Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or risings, you guys have a little bit more of a tricky time. 8th through like the 15th of August with Mars in opposition to Saturn and Neptune. A lot of this is having to just put yourself out there, working through things, being really focused on public relationships and like building your career. When in the background, behind the scenes, Saturn and Neptune in the fourth house is like, getting out of the house is challenging. Dealing with a family situation is a little heavy. Home and property related things can be a little tricky. So this one, you really want to lean into the air trine if you want to avoid some of the pitfalls of Saturn and Neptune in the fourth house. This can make you very competitive also at the time of the moon. So it can mean that you're standing up and you're really pushing for what you're owed, what you deserve. And that's been an ongoing theme with Mercury retrograde in your 8th house of negotiating something, negotiating a closing of a home or a property. Maybe you've been negotiating a settlement. Maybe you're going back and forth with insurance matters, or you're trying to kind of reassess investments. So regardless of where it's kind of coming from, my recommendation is to really watch for some of the sextiles to Saturn, where maybe you're reevaluating your priorities when it comes to finances and home. Maybe create a budget to explore, new income streams and reflect on what truly kind of defines your worth. I think that's going to be the best way through it. And look for some of the opportunities to make some changes professionally and out in the world to better navigate some of the things that are kind of going on financially and also on the home front. Love that Jupiter-Venus conjunction, by the way, in your guys' 7th house. At the very least, even if you feel like work is demanding and home and family is challenging, there are some really positive things on the horizon when it comes to romantic relationships. So we get the Death card. Somebody was going to get it. That was inevitable with this much Mars and kind of Pluto energy. So obviously this is the card that deals with Scorpio. It deals with like Mars and Pluto as well. And the Death card is saying like there's a definitive like decision here, or there's a definitive like ending and then a beginning that's happening. And it's funny that you're going through a retrograde in the 8th house where there's a lot of back and forth over karmic entanglement, what people owe you, what you owe other people, what you're paying off, or what you're kind of having to take care of financially. And the Death card is saying there's about to be a definitive change. Obviously, Pluto is connected to this. Pluto's in your second house, the same sign where you have the full moon, and it's saying there are some big changes happening to your financial situation. The fact that Uranus is in the 6th house makes me feel like that the changes actually, no, I'm getting another job, or I'm getting a better paying job, or there's going to be some sense of having to make some changes to what I'm eating, what I'm consuming, or anything health related, right? Uranus is in your 6th house, and that you're having to take like more responsibility for really financially showing up for yourself, especially when it comes to health and wellness and buying healthy food, taking care of your body, that kind of stuff. But also I think it's about really embracing the change. You may be one of the signs that's feeling this the strongest with the death card coming up, that you're like, okay, this is the end of the road. I can't continue to eat this way, or I can't continue to spend money this way, or, there finally has to be a breakthrough in a financial situation so that way I can actually overcome some of the challenges that I've been dealing with. I'm optimistic that if you lean into the positive aspects to Saturn, like, Pluto from your money house sextiling it, like Mars, like Saturn also sextiling Uranus, you're going to find that less is more right now. It sounds silly, but like really sizing down or scaling back with your home, and also focusing on what you value the most is going to help you kind of get debt paid, or kind of get things better situated financially so you can have more freedom, especially when it comes to your finances and the home front down the road. Good luck. I hope that's helpful for you, Capricorn. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. The full moon will be in your sign. Obviously, if you have anything around that 15, 16, 17 degrees of Aquarius, sun, moon, or rising, this is pretty personal for you. And the first house deals with your identity, your personal power, and authenticity. So when you have a full moon in your sign, the full moon is in your first house, and it's really lighting up your sense of self, how you look, how you carry yourself. You have to reflect on the personal goals that you set 6 months ago, and this is your kind of personal revolution. Uranus is the ruler of your, of your first house, and it's going to be in your fifth in aspect to Pluto in the first. So this is pretty dynamic for my Aquarius risings, where obviously a full moon in the first house is like wearing your emotions on your sleeve, or, being more focused on your own personal goals, or what you're changing, or how you're evolving. The moon obviously is directly connected to your sixth house of health and habits. So I do feel like you're really paying much more attention to what's going on with you emotionally, and how work and your habits and your routine are impacting you, whether that's your health or your emotional health. But the trine to Pluto in your fifth house is fun. It's very creative, bold, and dynamic. Equally, the co-ruler Saturn, you're also going to see a sextile to both Pluto as well as Uranus. And this is going to be about reworking, rethinking how you communicate, how you learn, how you share any media, writing, or any kind of educational projects, which is going to be really kind of connecting to your own personal power, how you can change and transform yourself, as well as how you create and kind of express, right? Uranus and Gemini in the fifth. So this is very much lit up for you guys. I think this might be a time where you're updating your personal style. Maybe you're speaking out more authentically, or you're speaking your truth in a public fashion. Maybe this is about really revising self-doubt to kind of step into your personal power, since Pluto is retrograde in your sign. And I think for a lot of you guys, this is a moment where there can be some big creative breakthrough, right? Because it is really aspecting Pluto in your fifth house. And that could be in a romantic relationship, in a creative hobby. There's also possibilities with the full moon in your first house and your ruler in the fifth house of pregnancy, or some kind of launch, or, showing the world something that you have worked on or created. Focusing on children, or also romantic endeavors can be a theme here as well. So it's almost like emotionally, you're feeling very expressive about some of these topics. I also like the trine that you're going to see to Mars in your ninth house. It's almost like some of you guys are going to go, well, actually, I'm traveling, I'm going on a trip, and I'm doing it with my kids, or I'm doing it with my significant other, and it's going to be really fun. I look forward to it. Others are going to be like, well, I'm taking a course, or I'm training, I'm traveling for work, right? Mars in the ninth. What you want to watch out for, I think, is going to be Mars in opposition to Saturn, because Saturn is your ruler. And on one hand, you're wanting to get out there, travel, and go far away. On the other hand, you're having language issues, scheduling issues. There can be challenges revolving around justifying traveling, or going and doing some like long-term, far distant kind of trip. And there could also be some philosophical challenges or some debates that can be coming up with Mars in opposition to Saturn. So definitely lean into the air trine and lean into some of the aspects that you're seeing between Saturn and Pluto. And it's teaching you to really think things through before you kind of communicate and express yourself. And with a full moon in your sign, you can be a little bit more emotional. Mercury retrograde in your seventh, also communication stuff is kind of coming up with others. Card that I get is the Hanged Man, which is interesting because, well, your chart ruler is conjunct Neptune. There's a lot of thinking things over, pausing and reflecting before you make a move. There's also, I think, this sense of the hangman going like, I don't want to make any, decisions because I'm emotional, or because I'm reacting, or because I'm angry. And that could definitely be a theme when the full moon's in your first house. Mercury retrograde in your 7th feels like a little bit of a stinker because there could be a lot of going back and forth with another person, whether it's a spouse, a significant other. It could also be a creative collaborator, a client, right, a business partner, and that you're trying to find ways to better connect and communicate and like negotiate. And in reality, other people are going to do what other people are going to do, and the communication issue can be a challenge. But the more that you're like keeping your sense of humor, the more that you're learning to kind of work around some of the problems in a creative fashion, the more that you're willing to kind of be spontaneous and like take risks, you can navigate some of these miscommunications and challenges in relationships. The first house is like something you do instinctually. And the fact that you're going to have both of your, chart rulers aspected makes me feel like there's a side of you that's like with the Hangman. I should pause and reflect. I don't want to do anything crazy or make any sudden decisions. And then Uranus in your 5th house is like, no, just do it. It's going to be fun, and you're like learning, ooh, do I want to get myself into some trouble if I'm going to be taking too big of risks? So it depends on how that manifests, whether that's going to be in relationships or if it's like financially or trading. But definitely pause and reflect before jumping into this Uranus energy in your 5th house. Pay attention to your emotions because they might set you off a little bit. Enjoy that full moon. I'd love to hear how it manifests for you guys. All right, we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. Pisces, you're going to do the full moon in Aquarius in your natal 12th house. Obviously, the 12th house is a little hidden. It's subconscious. This is about spirituality. It's about surrender. And that's going to put, obviously, the opposition of the sun in your 6th house. So for you in Virgo, it's like mind, body, spirit balance. There's a lot of what's getting reworked for you right now when it comes to your health habits and routine. And now you're going to see some of the effects of that through a full moon in your 12th house. Usually here you feel a little cagey, or there could be a sense of being a little bit more in tune or sensitive, maybe needing private time or you're needing more rest. Recuperating can be another theme with the 12th house, private spaces and hospitals. So with Mercury retrograde here, there can be this theme of stuff coming up revolving around like needing to kind of heal spiritually or needing some private time alone. Uranus obviously is the ruler, and it's definitely shaking things up for a lot of you guys now that it's in your 4th house, where there could be some sudden changes, spontaneous moves, breaking free from old emotional habits, or having some weird wonky things going on with like electricity at home or storms at home or even like family relationships. And it is making some trines in the chart, but it's going to houses that are about, changes emotionally with money, right, with power, and also with your home. Anyway, Uranus is a little bit of like a disruptive force, especially if you're an early degree Pisces Sun Moon rising, because now it's kind of saying you can't be indecisive or unsure. Now you actually have to be willing to be a little bit more free or flexible when it comes to things on the home front. The other thing that I think about is that it's going to be obviously making a sextile to Neptune, which is one of your co-rulers in your 2nd house of money, values, and resources. So, shaking things free, being a little bit more experimental with where you're living or how you're living, and how that can help you actually make some necessary changes financially or when it comes to your self-esteem, and help you get rid of things, give things away, travel a little bit lighter, or make some necessary changes financially so you can have more freedom at home. The other positive, I think, is that, you're having this full moon while Jupiter and Venus are conjunct, and Jupiter is your traditional ruler. So now it's moving through your 5th house. That's going to put a highlight for you on romance, creativity, children, having fun, hobbies, self-expression. Definitely big in the romance department, or if those of you guys who are wanting to, start your own business, or if you're wanting to expand your family, it can definitely be positive for that. And so I think for a lot of you guys, all in all, there can be this feeling of you just feeling really tapped in, really emotional, and being like, oh, I have this feeling something is coming. Of course, Pisces, next month, the next full moon is going to be in your sign, and that's going to be a lunar eclipse. So you might have a dream, or there might be an omen, or just a hunch or a feeling, maybe you get a reading that's like, hey, everything's about to change, by the way, and everything that's changing is about where you're living, how you're living, what's going on with your family, or potentially even your love life, and you're starting to kind of get this feeling that's like, whoa, it's coming, I can feel it. So I think that as we approach the eclipses next month, you're going to see more of this stuff going on. Take time, rest, recuperate, right? Meditate, maybe, process any subconscious thoughts. And this is a good time to clear mental clutter with, some kind of like release ritual. I would say look to your home, right? Stage your place, Uranus and Gemini. Set some intentions about what kind of a home base you want to be in, where you see yourself going. Trust the process, especially with the universe helping you make these changes. Card that I get for you is the Nine of Swords, which obviously that going hand in hand with a full moon in the 12th house is like, I'm having trouble sleeping. I'm up all night. I'm worried. I'm stressed. What's going to happen? What's going to play out? Once again, I'm going to go back to what I said. Saturn, Mars making oppositions can definitely, in your case, bring some stress revolving around money and resources. But I think what will ultimately end up trumping that is the Jupiter-Venus conjunction in the 5th. That, sure, yeah, there can be some, moving expenses. There could be some changes going on with your funds, and maybe you're kind of feeling stressed, like, how am I going to make it all happen? When in reality, a lot of the things that are kind of coming in are, maybe going to be home and family related, or it's going to be revolving around expenses connecting to your children or expenses connected to a personal business. Nine of Swords is about, stress and sleep loss, but it's also reminding you that if you stay in that constant state of worry, you're never going to be able to actually enjoy going through the process. And I'm wondering what that is. Are you stressed about a relationship, wondering if it's going to work? Are you stressed about, a creative project or something, if it's going to be successful? Are you worrying too much about like children and taking care of them? What you'll find is that you will get so wrapped up in the stress that you won't get the time to stop and enjoy being in this moment. And I think that the Venus-Jupiter is trying to kind of remind you of that. And I would say do anything you can to develop like a nighttime routine with the Nine of Swords. Maybe burn some incense, do some meditation, kind of clear your head. And remind yourself that the universe is supporting you and has your back. And ultimately, you're being tested, but that's because you have things that are coming in that you have actually been asking for. So you're kind of like leveling up in this sense. And I think primarily financially and spiritually in this department. So let me know what happens, Pisces. I know you guys are feeling that change. It's coming in real quick. All right, guys. Well, that's all I have for you for this up and coming full moon in Aquarius. Obviously, it is going to be electrifying, right? This is a cosmic call to really kind of break free and embrace something that is more unique and obviously aligning with our higher purpose. For a lot of us, these are things that we've been asking for, and now we're finally going to have that breakthrough moment. So thank you guys for joining me, listening to this video today, for your likes, your comments, your shares, and obviously leave me a comment below and let me know what do you guys think of these aspects? How crazy is it to have, Saturn in opposition to Mars and Jupiter conjunct Venus, Mercury in opposition to Pluto? I think some of the more jaw-dropping things that are going to be happening is actually going to be good in the long term, but there's still going to be a little bit of like shock and awe in the meantime. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on the matter. I will be here tomorrow doing live readings. We'll be doing live tarot readings. You can catch me here at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That's going to be 4 p.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. Eastern. Come hang out with me, get your cards read. I'd love to give you guys some insights. We can also talk more about what's going on with this full moon, obviously, as we're getting closer to that over the next couple of weeks. But until next time, I'll see you guys very soon. Enjoy this illumination, and you guys take care.